Now, going on to the culture part of the podcast, you have Disney CEO Bob Iger hosting an emergency meeting as Mickey Mouse is on life support. And they must save that rat. It's paramount. But it looks like it does have a little bit of gangrene. You're going to have to maybe amputate a couple of limbs. Not to get too gruesome, but yeah, thanks to their improving business decisions, many parts of Disney are rotten. Well, both morally, ethically, but also fiscally as well, which is what especially the stockholders and shareholders should be concerned about. Now, Disney's Bob Iger attended an exclusive offsite meeting in order to, quote, calm the high anxiety after saying that linear TV may not be core to Disney, unquote. Now, I keep hearing this term more and more, so just because I didn't know when I first heard it. So to define linear TV, is traditional TV you knew about back in the 80s and 90s, where you actually had a physical cable, and you actually have a cable going to, well, at the time it was a good old tube TV, which used to be bulletproof reliability. Now we have small thin TVs that break every 18 minutes or so it seems. But I digress. It's the traditional legacy cable TV that everyone has grown up with, and also is decreasing exponentially in the user count. And I was about to say adaptation rate, but I don't know how many people are really ordering cable new, with the exception of when you have the blended packages from like AT&T and Verizon, where they pretend it's free, or they have a bundle where it's like, well, your phone will miraculously cost $10 less per month if you add the cable, which they make a lot of money for the advertising through the cable. So there's many reasons they offset, move costs around. But I don't know anyone who's actually called out the phone and go, yeah, I want to get cable. I want to get cable for my house, eh? We need cable. It's the 1930s. Or actually, bad metaphor. They didn't have cable back then. But I digress. You get the idea. Should have done an accent from the 90s, but that would have been too tubular. Or radical, man. Oh, wait. But I digress. Now, apparently Bob Iger met with the senior TV leaders of the company. And keep in mind, currently Disney owns the following television networks, including Disney Channel, which makes sense. You also have National Geographic, ABC, FX, and ESPN. And we actually reported here a couple of days ago, National Geographic, they just had to lay off their final writers. So now it's all going to be independent contractors for the writers. Also killing a magazine, which used to be perhaps what they were most well known for, but the concept of National Geographic just kind of died with the proliferation and the mass adaptation of smartphones. And you have these, what do you call those fancy young folks who travel the world, like influencers, the youngsters who travel the globe and do vlogs and they get sponsors and people pay for it. That's kind of what National Geographic was best known for, is going to those remote locations and getting those unique pictures and videos. So that particular branch, maybe that's Mickey's pinky or his middle finger, that's pretty gangrene. There's not, in my opinion, there's not much of a business use case to keep that particular TV station. Also, ABC, I don't know what they're mostly known for these days. I haven't seen that for probably a decade and a half. FX, they had one good investment, in my opinion. They had It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where that show was saved. FX gave them a chance when no one else would. And after the first season, they're about to cancel it. But the president of FX apparently used to be Danny DeVito's boss at Danny DeVito's media company, or a president at that company. And he told It's Always Sunny, hey, you need to get a celebrity in here, boost the ratings. So he suggested Danny DeVito. It's Always Sunny actually, ironically, originally said no. Then they said yes, because FX said they were going to cancel the show. And thanks to putting Danny DeVito on the show, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia just exponentially increased in popularity and went viral. And to me, that's probably been the most successful program on FX the past, couple of decades. So there's a little bit of a gem there. Of course, depending on the contracts that are written, you might be able to spin off what ownership they have or what agreement they have for the next number of seasons with It's Always Sunny, to see how that's working out. And then you have ESPN, which that's been trashed, I want to say, since 2008. When I say trash for ESPN, I mean people traditionally didn't tune into sports to talk about politics. ESPN was the first one where they made the mistake of their ratings were falling, and they noticed that if you talk about politics, you'd get an uptick in interest because controversy does sell. And they decided to lean, it was almost as if they were addicted to The Cure, and The Cure ended up killing them, perhaps as an apt metaphor, because they leaned full into politics. And then a lot of people I know who are diehard sports fans, and they love talking about the sports balls and the touchdowns and the touchbacks and the 3-pointers and 5-pointers, whatever they call them. But they got pretty frustrated because they were trying to tune in to listen to ESPN about the scores of the games, and they were having moronic ESPN hosts talking about they were talking about everything from being anti-gun, which, again, that's going to, on average, alienate about maybe 50% of the country. They're making a lot of statements that were political and not really about the players or the game. So it did get them maybe an increased audience in a different category, but their core audience, I think, exponentially shrunk because of that. So how much of that is an asset nowadays? That's pretty debatable. Ironically, or maybe just because obviously, maybe Bob Iger does have some data we don't know about. Obviously, he does. But that's the one that he actually is pretty prominent on keeping. When asked for comment, he said he's pretty adamant about keeping ESPN. So it'll be interesting to see what his plan is for them. But I mean, this is also after just days ago when Bob Iger said many parts of the company were for sale. They even might completely sell off the India division rather than the Disney subsidiary in India, because that was the one that had the highest loss globally. And their streaming service, again, Disney Plus, is projected to lose $800 million this fiscal quarter. So in only 3 months, that's going to lose $800 million. It's almost as inept as the government. Now, left, right, whatever you want to call it, whoever's in power. The government, they're good at losing money. And to lose $800 million in 3 months is almost an impressive amount of ineptitudes and just terrible business practices. Now, many independent analysts have said that they estimate Disney could potentially get about $8 billion if they were to sell off their TV assets, which, given the writing on the wall for cable TV, I think would be a pretty prudent business decision, depending on how much, again, intellectual property they have on those TV stations. Usually TV stations are known for broadcasting more than creating, but some do more than others. That might be a pretty prudent business decision for Disney to get some cash infusion. If they have a long-term vision of making Disney Plus profitable, you can offset those losses by the sale of the TV assets. And given this media transition, I don't see cable growing in my lifetime. The use case is getting less and less, kind of like house phones. It used to be every house had to have a house phone. You'd be silly not to have one. Now, you have to have a very specific use case for it to really make sense. And it'll be interesting to see. And you also, Disney parks have a record. The past 4th of July, which again, many people traditionally would actually go to the Disneyland to praise the mouse instead of our country. But I digress. I'm sure kids have fun there. But many people would celebrate 4th of July by going to Disneyland or Disney World. And it was actually reported this past 4th of July, it was one of their lowest foot traffic, aka how many people actually went to the park. In the past 10 years, it was one of the lowest rates. So that's not doing good as well. The actual wait time for rides right now at Disney is less than peak. I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying the pandemic. If you say certain words, apparently your videos get blacklisted, delisted. It's a mystery of the enigma that is the algorithm, and I'm sure I'll read the small font someday on the terms and conditions once, thanks to you, we become monetized, and that'll also give us resources to put in graphics and other such things to bolster the quality of the show. So, I also am especially appreciative when you take time to like, subscribe, and comment, because each one of those things greatly help out the channel. So with all those things going on with Mickey on the operating table, how much is Bob Iger going to have to do to chop him up to actually save the company? Or can he? There's speculation that there's a rumor a couple years back that Apple might buy the media assets of Disney. Perhaps Apple, which is one of the most profitable companies on the planet and in history, they certainly have the cash to buy Disney Plus and integrate it into perhaps Apple Plus, which is yet again another streaming service. But if it's losing money, how long would it take for Apple to get an ROI or a positive return on investment if they were to buy it? Their intellectual property is, of course, worth something, but how much is it worth? That'd be obviously a little debate and a little negotiation back and forth. I'm sure it'd be very detailed, but with this current model, Disney is not succeeding. Doesn't help that they're also getting more and more involved in politics, but I digress. It'll be interesting to see, can they save that little Mickey Mouse? Time shall tell. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in. I really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of July, so I especially appreciate you taking time to click that button and subscribe. If you already have, I also really appreciate when you take the time to share the video and comment. It seems like those things especially help the channel get more views and more comments. It'll help us grow together. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.